Hi, everybody. Welcome to the CoCo Show. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we got two big games.
Big games.
We're going to talk about the Sands of Egypt and Buzzard bait.
I've got a special visual aid for the Buzzard bait section of this. I can't wait to break this out.
Oh.
This came straight from the lab, though.
Now, Aaron, Sands of Egypt is what we call the graphical text adventure. Okay?
Yes.
Now, I remember the first time I ever played a text adventure. I approach things differently as a youth than most people because I started out playing, I played more 2600 and the Atari 1200 XL, lots of like graphical games,
right?
You know, so when the first time I played a game that was just a solid wall of text, I thought it was kind of cool. It was neat because it was like the story was playing out in my mind.
Right.
I would have been over the moon to play a game like Sands of Egypt because not only do you have the text there, but you've also got sort of a graphical interpretation. The Atari 1200 XL didn't get a whole lot of those. For whatever reason, they were mostly just the straight-on text. Now, I'm sure a lot of people might think that they would rather just have the text and not have any graphical representation to let their mind do the imagining.
Right.
What do you think?
When these came out, now of course I had a CoCo when I was a kid, and I did have had both these games, and we also had the text games, the Infocom stuff mostly, and of course everyone made one, right? I've looked at it two different ways. When I had a CoCo, and so we weren't getting a lot of games that other people got. We weren't getting Prince of Persia. We weren't getting, Castle Wolfenstein, stuff like that. So when I saw a game like, let's say, Zork or something along those lines, I was like, wow, we're getting a game that's on the Apple, that's on the PCs. We're finally getting support from someone else. And so in my mind, that made that a bigger deal. Now, when I would sit down to play these games, honestly, I never really got into text games all that much, to be truthful. So when a game like Sands of Egypt came out, I was drawn to it purely because it had graphics, if you want the truth. Because, let's face facts. For the most part, games like this are just text games with some pictures often just plastered on them. But they called to me. I don't know if it was because they felt more modern or just strictly because of the graphics, but I liked them better than just text games. Now, I can understand what you're saying because, I'm a big-time classic radio fan. Mm-hmm. So I like that theater of the mind, mind's eye stuff. I'm down with that, but for me, the text games, it's only something I've been able to kind of get into a little bit more recently. But when I was a kid, I didn't have no time for most of those. There were some I would play, but it wasn't something I was going out of my way to get into. So you played quite a few then back then?
There was a game called Beachcomber.
Yeah.
I played all the time. You were this guy, check this out. You're on the beach and you're like looking for cells and stuff, but you can go into an arcade. You put money into the arcade, and then it's like you're playing this game, and then all of a sudden it like sucks you in. I don't know if I'm remembering this properly, and I might be getting confused with Tron or like The Last Starfighter or something like that. But anyway, in my mind, it was great.
Yeah.
And I remember there was this one game. It was like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where you were with Marvin, the depressed robot, except it was like a clone sort of thing. But I swear the text parser was so good, you could type the most off-the-wall stuff, and he would know what you were talking about. And I just thought that was AI.
Some of those text parsers, they really did refine those quite a bit, and so you could really go crazy with stuff. But really, at the end of the day, you're just staring at a screen of text.
You are.
So I'm not saying it's. I shouldn't downplay it like that. It's not fair. Some people love those, but at the time, I wasn't feeling them. So when this wave of graphical text games came out, I was much more into them. I can say that.
Well, let's talk about the Sands of Time.
Sands of Egypt.
The Sands of Egypt. I typed this in as I was getting things together for the show, and I typed in like the Sands of the Desert of Egypt. I cannot remember the name of this game. The Sands of Egypt.
And the beat goes on.
Yeah.
So Sands of Egypt came out in '82, of course on the CoCo, and this would run on any of the CoCos as long as you had 32K memory. Only came on disc, both, which I found interesting. So get this. This was the first disc-only game that Radio Shack ever sold for the color computer.
I remember, I think you were telling me that most, when you would look at the shelves, they would be mostly full of carts, right?
They would mostly have carts, but I do remember seeing this. It was part of an animated adventure series, basically. It was just like just a name, just like Real Sports or whatever. They just tagline. According to this, the second in the graphics text adventures games they released was the Dallas Quest, which me and the Brent covered on ARG. It's one of Brent's all-time favorite games, which was it was very similar to this. This game came out, and you were talking pretty good graphics in '82. This thing had 256 by 192 by 2 4-color graphics.
Yeah.
And on top of everything else, what you got here, well, let's explain what you're looking at. You've got it's your screen's split in half. The bottom half, mostly half, is text with a little compass, and the top half you get a picture. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an animated window. You will get when you move, it actually scrolls.
Yeah.
Which is nice. You get like almost, I guess, could you call it parallax or multiplanar scrolling? I guess would be the best way to put it. I mean, you actually get there's multiple movements when you move. Mm-hmm. It's actually not bad. Mm-hmm. The colors, you think to yourself, geez, 4 colors. Well, that sounds like crap. Well, it looks pretty good. And I remember at the time that I thought this had the best graphics I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. It really blew me away. It had a really cool cover, and so this game was one that I was licking my chops to play. So when I went back to play it this week, I remembered some of it. That's for sure. The fellows that put this together were James Guerin, Ralph Burris, and Steve Bjork. Now, we just went into a long list of the titles that Steve Bjork worked on. I mean, he's worked on everything. If you listen to last week's episode, you can get the full rundown. He worked on tons of stuff. Then you had James Guerin. Well, we've covered one of his games already, too. Him and Steve Bjork worked on Canyon Climber. So, and there is the color palette on this is very similar to Canyon Climber, isn't it, Bo?
Yeah.
It's kind of the rusty browns and blues and whites, and it actually works out pretty well. And I thought Canyon Climber was a real attractive game as well. So I'd never ever seen the actual manual for this, and so I actually was amused that there's a backstory that I never knew about. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I want to get into some of it.
Well, first of all, show the people that are watching the video version. This is actually, it looks like a handwritten letter that came with the game.
Yeah. And this was actually in the manual. Now, it would have been cooler if it was a fealy, but you get it is what it is. But this is something that would have been a fealy. And so this is a fellow writing to Vicky, and he's talking about being on the expedition here. And he was, as he goes through here, he talks about having to discipline his men. He says, as the leader of the expedition, I attempted to maintain order, but the other members refused to accept my helpful guidance. Being the author of 19 critically acclaimed etiquette books, that's a lot.
That is a lot of etiquette books.
I was diligent in trying to teach the others proper digging methods and the proper way to keep their khakis starched. This is
like the Emily Post of the desert.
However, they became increasingly disrespectful, refusing to starch their khakis and have high tea on schedule. As a result of their impudence, I was forced to remove some of their privileges. So there you go. When he woke up on the 5th morning, I awoke to find that they had abandoned me in the middle of the desert with no water, shelter, or kippers. It was highly irregular. I can picture this guy in my head now.
Oh, yeah.
This is highly irregular. Personally, I hope they were eaten by cobras and scorpions. And then he sums up his letter. Fortunately, while ransacking my tent, they overlooked my compass, which was in the left pocket of my khakis. I always sleep in my khakis, which I consider proper behavior.
Of course.
And so, using my compass, I was able to overcome the unfavorable meteorological conditions, find the tomb of Ra, make my way back to the Nile, and then have a brief respite in Cairo. So, this is him. This is the letter he would send, presumably, after you complete the mission. Mm-hmm. So, to summarize, this guy was a jerk, a pompous jerk to his diggers, who ripped him off, screwed him over, and left him to die. And that's you in the desert.
That's you.
I never knew that.
You are that pompous jerk.
Listen, I'm the role I was meant to play, Boat. When you don't have high tea at the appropriate time and don't start your khakis.
I know. I've crossed you before when it comes to that.
What do you do in this game? Well, you do start out set in the middle of the desert, and you are tasked to move around. Now, this has a pretty basic movement system. Did you have any trouble?
I had no trouble moving around
understanding
this game.
the way you move? I didn't think you would.
This is not one of those games where you've got a mouse and you're clicking on icons to move. You got your compass points, and those are the places you can move
They
to.
were pretty clever the way they did it. They highlight where you can go. You can hit, and you don't have to type in the whole word, which is something you had to do back in the day. Not only does it have that stuff, you can actually save games. I don't know if you knew that, which is awesome.
I read that.
Yeah. Now, so we agree that the interface pretty good. I mean, this thing doesn't have the parser of doom, but it's got something. So here you are, your boat. You load this up. How did you fare in your efforts to escape the desert? I want to hear what you thought of the actual gameplay and the puzzle elements, because this is your standard hunt and fetch, figure out what to do with the stuff you find sort of game.
I fared poorly, Aaron.
Yes.
I died many times.
Yeah, from thirst?
From thirst.
Yeah.
I also died by snake.
Yes.
So this is one of these games where you've got to make a map. You've got to. If you don't, you're screwed. You got to get out the graph paper and you got to go.
It even says that in the documentation. You get some paper.
I did not get out the graph paper and I did not go. What I did do...
You're 2020 lazy.
Right.
Yeah.
What I did do was I got to the snake.
Yeah.
Okay, I got the shovel.
Yeah.
Okay. And I got to the snake.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, it's on now. I know what I need to do. I need to kill this snake.
Correct.
So I typed in kill snake and then I hit enter. And then it said with what? And I said shovel.
Yeah.
And then it said, what do you mean? And I said, shovel, damn it. And then I died.
You put in damn it? You
No,
actually
I
typed that
didn't.
in?
But in my mind,
you
I
do
thought
kill it
that.
with the shovel.
I know. You've got to type in kill snake with shovel.
Yeah.
Okay? So this is the type of thing that drives me insane in these games. When I was a kid, I had the patience for that.
Yeah.
As an adult, I don't have that patience anymore. So I immediately I was like, listen, I'm gonna get through this, and then I'm gonna get back to the game. So I went on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
And I watched, and I saw what he needed to do, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to kick back and watch this whole thing. And that's what I did. And I enjoyed it. It was cool because the guy knew exactly what he was doing. He went through, I saw all the scenes. I enjoyed it as what they call a content tourist.
Yeah, well, I will say this is a game that I did have back in the day. And this is the kind of game that you sit down with and you spend an afternoon. And it's just a kind of game that me and Brent, when Brent got old enough, could sit down and we would team up and try to think of everything you could possibly do.
Right.
This game is very similar to Dallas Quest in that the puzzles are often nonsensical. Not often, but occasionally, let's be fair. And you are going to fail a lot, and you're going to be frustrated a lot as you go through it, because there are areas where you have to wait for a certain amount of time. There are areas you just have to sort of randomly dig. You're also occasionally thirsty. And the more...
Occasionally?
Well, you're in the desert, for God's sake.
Yeah.
So at first he just says, I'm thirsty. Then he starts saying, I'm really thirsty. Then he's like, I'm dying of thirst. And then you're screwed.
So this is like having a platformer exploration game with a time limit.
It is.
You know, they want you to explore and find out all the cool things, but you better do it quick. And that, to me, I understand thematically, you know, you're in the desert, you can die of thirst.
Yeah.
But boy, does that sap the fun out of this game for me.
Well, the manual does have some tips in it that would help a little. Having not had the manual, this is another perfect example of why you shouldn't pirate things.
Who buries you in the desert to place that tombstone? That's what I want to know.
Listen, they had to have something. They just can't have your rotten corpse. So... I did remember some of this. I remembered enough to get the shovel, kill the snake, and get the canteen and get to the oasis. I remembered that much, and fill up the canteen. Then it got real sketchy real quick. I knew you could climb the tree to get dates. I did remember riding the camel. I remembered that. But there's a lot of steps that you have to take. And much like yourself, I got to the point where I had to go and watch someone get through. I beat this. I actually went through the whole thing, but it's not like I could say, boy, I beat it. I basically watched the guy do it, and then I sort of did it.
Right. I did the same thing, except I just didn't do it. Yeah.
Then it took that guy. the fact of the matter is, it's a real tough old school game. Now, I used to play there's several of these graphical text adventures that I played on the CoCo. This was not my favorite, I'll be honest with you. This had some cool aspects to it, and some stuff I'd never seen until I went through it. Like, I'd never been I don't think we ever got to the underground river or any of that stuff. That was cool, or to actually see the tomb. It's fun to adventure through this. But I mean, it's funny, you watch a playthrough of it, and the playthrough goes about 12, 15 minutes, and it's over. And I remember sitting there and just spending hours and hours trying to find stuff that this guy would it was painful. So it's the kind of game that you're going to have to sit around and just set aside a month and just play it on and off. I mean, that's it. That's all there is to it. It's not an easy game. Now, all that said, gameplay aside, it looks nice. The animations are nice, and it was sort of on the CoCo at least, this was sort of a seminal title in this genre. So when you're the first at something, you're not necessarily the best at it, right?
Right. And
I think these titles progressed well afterwards. I even think Dallas Quest is probably a little bit better, although Dallas Quest is even more, some of the puzzles are even more nonsensical than this.
I'll tell you one thing about this game. This particular title is perfectly suited to the color palette of the CoCo. You know, the CoCo does orange so well.
Yeah.
It does blue so well. And those colors really, really pop in this game.
Yeah. It does. It looks good. It looks good. But overall, you know, it wasn't the best thing I ever played. Let's just put it that way. I looked this up on eBay, by the way, and there were none. And that surprised me, to be honest with you, because this was a game that I would always see at the Shack, you know, and they didn't have it. So this is one that I was surprised I didn't see online. I even checked to see if one had sold recently, and there weren't any. You know, my brain tells me that we played this on cassette. So when I found out that it was a disc-only release, I was sort of surprised. So I guess you could someone may have converted, or maybe just remembering it wrong, but it was definitely only released as a text game. So if this is your cup of tea, or you just want to experience it, I think that's probably what I would do, just to run through it. You can run through it pretty quick, you know, and it's a good laugh if you want to sit down and have a few minutes of fun. But it's not one you're going to go back to. And if you're trying it for the first time without any cheating, good luck.
Now, what did you, when you sold your CoCo, did you sell everything as one big lot, all the games, everything?
The only thing I kept, I had a copy of a game called WrestleManiac that I bought in the back of a magazine. I kept that somewhere. I've still got it. I think I sold. I think I may have accidentally kept some discs, but I think I sold everything.
Okay.
Yeah. What would I keep it for? Because there was no compatibility or anything.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
When it went, but it had to go.
All right.
So
Aaron.
Good game. Did we get any? I don't think we got any. Did we get any?
We got no listener reviews this week on the CoCo Show.
All right. Well, we'll move it along then, Boat. So,
all righty.
Let's shift gears.
Let's shift them.
So you're going from a graphical text adventure to a straight-up arcade clone, Boatster. And so the second game we're going to look at today is Buzzard Bait. Buzzard Bait. Now, Buzzard Bait is a clone, a straight-up clone of the old standard Joust. You know, Joust, a great game that was released by Williams Electronics in 1982. Big hit in the arcade. Are you a fan?
I like Joust.
Joust is you got to have two people playing that sucker. It makes it more fun. This was one of the early games where this is a real unique gameplay style for the era. Williams was on fire for a while, and you're talking about the same company that was putting out, you know, Robotron and
Defender.
Yeah, they had a bunch of crazy, and Stargate and all those. And this was really one of their wackiest games, where you mount an ostrich and fight other people mounted on ostriches that are knights. And every time you would land on a bird or an ostrich, you would knock off the rider, and the thing would lay an egg, and you picked it up. Just wacky.
It is wacky.
And one thing that the arcade had was some awesome sound. The Williams, of course, Williams came from a pinball background, and they
knew how to do sound.
They used a lot of their sounds that were in their pinball machines came out in their arcade machines and vice versa. And it had Williams games always have this unique sound, this crazy bass feel, and they really have a cool look. This thing had a real cool in-game font that was used. It was just a great game. And so of course, Defender got ported to every conceivable thing, right? And we're going to come back to that because this story actually winds around to Defender eventually, believe it or not. But anyway, the CoCo, of course, rarely got any sort of arcade port like official. We talked about one last week with the Rampage.
Mm-hmm.
And
but those were few and far between.
That's right. And of course, the CoCo was more than capable of a port.
Mm-hmm.
So what you ended up getting were these clones, and this is the clone of Defender or Joust. Now, I found the actual box text on this. You got to hear this, and I think you'll enjoy this, Boat. This is on the back of the box, and also in their ad, and it's included on the instructions. We've done it again. You thought the King was great. Wait till you see this. Outstanding high-resolution graphics, tremendous sound make this Joust-type game a must for your software collection. They even mentioned Joust. As you fly from cloud to cloud, you will enjoy this sky-high excitement, dealing with the challenges presented to you by the newest release by Tom Mix Software, your old buddy.
Anything about chucking empties in there?
No, chucking empties, but they mentioned your favorite game, the King, in here. So this was put out by a crew called the Rugby Circle. Right, now they've done some other stuff on the CoCo, including a game called Death Trap, and it was authored. The Rugby Circle was comprised of Robert Lech, Lech, and Troy Dahlman. Okay, and published by Tom Mix in '83. We're going to get back to those guys in a minute. Now, this will run pretty much on any 32K CoCo, and you can get it on disc or tape. The tape's going to run you $28. The disc, $31. I'd go with the disc personally. That's just me if you got it. So clearly, they make no bones about the fact that they've ripped off Joust. Okay, it's amazing I say gall or the bravado that you would mention the game you're ripping off in your ad. It's truly astounding to me. So you've played both games now, Boat. And this, of course, supports 1 or 2 players. Mm-hmm. It has the exact same layout, level-wise, in terms of the landing areas that you do in the arcade. I did notice that there are some omissions. The one that I noticed was a egg wave.
Right. Where's the egg wave at?
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they really got everything else, including if you've played Joust. Like I said, you get on these things and fly around. You try to dismount the other knights. And as you progress through the levels, parts of the levels disappear, including the floor. Part of it goes away, and there's lava under it. And if you get to a certain point, there's a hand that will reach up out of the lava and drag you down.
Right.
That's in here. The hand dissolving the level barriers in here. One
thing I noticed, and it's been so long since I played the arcade version. Most of the time, I play the version on the Atari computer. Your rider will actually dismount, and you have to mount your bird, or you'll see the computer have to mount his bird. I was watching this playthrough, and I saw that. I don't recall that from the arcade game.
When the eggs hatch,
yeah,
that's the way. Yeah, no, that's exactly what they did.
Okay.
When you die, you sort of teleport back to one of the starting spots. Right. It's all there. It plays. The graphics are a little chunkier than the arcade. Mm-hmm. The arcade has more airspace, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel as claustrophobic as this does. Mm-hmm. But given the limitations of having this on a home screen, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty darn good port.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is that the albatross, I don't know what he actually is, the condor, the big dragon
pterodactyl.
The pterodactyl, yeah, I knew it was some kind of bird. He appears much earlier in this game than he does in the other.
You mean if you waste too much time?
Yeah.
He'll come out, and much like I looked at the scoring for this, and I'm not going to go over all the scoring, but you get certain amount of points for the eggs you get a certain amount of points for when it's a survival wave or a team wave when you don't kill each other, the gladiator wave. They've also got different types of knights you have to go after. And you also, this is the reason I looked up the scoring, could you kill the pterodactyl? In the arcade you can if you hit him right, and in this you can as well. It's worth 1,000 points. So they've even included that. Now what does this not have that the arcade has? Well, it's not as colorful. It doesn't have the cool font. It's not have all the flourishes of the arcade in terms of the way the landings look and the Buzzards you ride on, let's assume they're Buzzards since it's Buzzard bait. The Buzzards don't have the detail that they do that the birds do in the arcade. The fire is not as good. The colors are toned down.
Yeah.
But really, these are minor complications. The big place where this thing falters is the sound. It does have sound. It's not great sound. And if you are used to playing this in the arcade where you've got the awesome sounds of the arcade, those aren't featured here.
Yeah. Now, I will say, because I can only see the little guy there.
Yeah, that's exactly the way it is in the arcade.
Okay, yeah. Comparing this to the Atari port, the sound is about the same.
Yeah.
I will say that, like you said, the feeling is a little, for reasons I don't completely understand, it's a little bit more claustrophobic here. Maybe the landing areas are a little bit bigger than they should be. I felt the same way.
I feel like the guys are bigger and the landing bays are probably at best the same, if not a little smaller.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, if you're a CoCo owner and you like Joust, you can't go wrong with this. And
I've played many a two-player game with this with my brother or guests, and it plays. You're not going to do anything wrong playing this. Now, I wanted to get to this part because this is what I think is really wacky. So I mentioned that the guys that worked on this, Robert Lake and Troy Dahlman of the Rugby Circle, had a few games on the CoCo. Well, they also, this is something I bet it can't have happened more than a couple times. This is from a book called Faster Than Light. It's a book about the Atari home computers. You should check. I think it's mostly the ST.
Yeah, I think it's the ST book.
So the Rugby Circle decided they were going to go into ST programming, Atari ST. They bought a pre-production Atari ST, one of the first 20 Atari ever sold.
Wow.
Okay, for $4,500. Then they bought a second one when the price dropped. All right, and they were hired to produce a game on the ST. Guess which game it was? Joust.
Okay.
They got hired to do an official port of Joust on the Atari ST. So that in itself was crazy. Just the fact that these guys came from a clone Atari version of Joust to the actual licensed version.
Well, developer or companies had their tendrils out in the clone market looking for talent.
Yeah. So as they were trying to develop Joust for the Atari ST, they were having trouble. So they decided to make their own. They taught themselves C, and then created a commercial. Basically, they created a sprite programming utility to aid them in programming Joust. And the program they developed was called Core. It was an object editor. And so they were giving the magazine Antic, a demonstration of what they were doing with Joust. And Antic were like looking at this product they were working on, they were using to make the Joust graphics. They're like, what the heck's this? And so Antic instantly licensed Core.
Wow.
Okay. And it was the first ST product in the Antic arcade catalog. This was this COIR program, and it ended up coming out before Joust was released.
Weird.
That's strange.
Yeah.
So now, as far as I could tell, that was pretty much the only thing that they did. And people tried to figure out what they did with Core, and no one knows if anything was developed with it. But it blew my mind that these guys went from making a clone of Joust to actually getting licensed to do Joust.
Well, the fact that they wrote like a sprite, programming utility, that is wild.
It is craziness, man. It's crazy. I did find a review on this one. The guys over at Ice People that do all the CoCo reviews gave this game an A-, and they really liked it. And I would say I would be pretty much fall in line with that. I think this is a good quality clone of Joust. I'd say it's one of the better clones. This is not the only Joust clone, by the way. There's a clone called Lancer, which I think is not quite as good as this, but some people like it. And then there's also a game, it's called Pegasus something or another, and it's a super fancy version of Joust. It's not a clone, it's more of like a reimagining. I haven't played this one for years, and so that's one to look at in the future. But in terms of a straight clone of Joust, this right here is your Huckleberry.
Awesome.
Now, before we close it up, thank you, Curtis. Pegasus and the Phantom Riders. What a name, by the way. I work at a crime lab. So when I knew we were doing this Buzzard game, I knew we had this sitting in the back. And I brought this for you, Bo, to have a look at. All right, let's get this on camera here. Now, you don't have to do anything crazy. You ever heard of the process of freeze drying?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how Dippin' Dots, the ice cream of the future, is made.
Well, this, if I've got the right box here, this should be a completely preserved, freeze-dried by the great state of Kentucky Buzzard. There should be a Buzzard in here.
Wow, okay. Well, I wasn't expecting that to enter Amigo Studios, but that's fine.
It's, you know, they put all this biohazard stuff on here.
They put some biohazard duct tape on there,
They told me,
apparently.
oh, I did that, because the tape that was on here wasn't holding very well. They told me probably I shouldn't take this out, but I got permission, so I'm going to let you do the honors.
Okay.
You want to grab in there. Now, handle them carefully. Usually you use gloves on that.
Ho, ho, ho! What is
man,
this?
I think I grabbed the wrong box.
Oh, man.
Dude, I'm so
This
sorry.
is a CoCo 3.
Oh, man. How the hell did that get in there?
Now, wait a minute. Is this your CoCo 3? Did you wrap up your CoCo 3?
No. What you got there, shoot, I picked up the wrong box. That is a CoCo 3. I think it's got 2 meg upgrade in it.
Oh, man.
That I put in there. So, Merry Christmas, boat.
Well,
Since
where's
you're
your
running the
CoCo 3?
Mine's at home.
We have 2 CoCo 3s between us?
We do now. I talked you up on a CoCo 3 a while back, and you were like, nah, I'm going to mod the crap out of this CoCo 2. And I was like, this is a big mistake. And so, it turned out to be a much bigger mistake than I anticipated. And so I thought, you know, now that you're on board with the CoCo, you might as well have something you can play with. And so right there is you can get yourself a CoCo 3. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, thank you.
I've already tested it. Like I said, I put the memory in it, and it's already upgraded, and it's got a real good quality video signal. So you should have a lot of fun with that.
I can't wait. I'm definitely going to fire this thing up this weekend.
I tested all the keys. It should be good to go. So now, truly, you can be the host of the CoCo Show.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Put that on the pile of computers that you never get to use.
All right. Well, I'm speechless after that, Aaron. Thank you so much. Of course, Christmas has come early for our show supporters. Those Patreon supporters that supported us for at least 4 months are in the market for a couple of goodies, including...
These are tremendous.
CoCo Show official supporter 2019 magnets.
I love those.
And Game Selection Committee 2019 for our Game Selection Committee members. So these will be winging their way towards you very, very shortly. So be on the lookout in the mail. And if you would like to get one of these in December 2020, next Christmas, consider supporting the CoCo Show at patreon.com/The CoCo Show. You also get access to our Discord channel, which is the nicest people you'll ever meet in your
smartest.
life. Yeah, and smartest. And you also get to listen to the show ad-free too. So there's tons of benefits. So be on the lookout. CoCo Show supporters, Game Selection Committee members.
I'm taking a couple of these bad boys back to the pad. These are going up on the old fridge.
I want to thank all the fine folks that are here watching us in the chat here in twitch.tv/Amigos Retro Gaming. We got L. Curtis B, Pixels at Dawn Gaming, Picard 2010, Ricky DeRocher is here, Milton Bradley, Pixels at Dawn Gaming, Tanner Mirabel, Terror K, Delamort 78. Thank you so much for watching us live. We do tape the show every Friday night, so feel free to stop by. I want to thank all of our Twitch subscribers. Tapes from the Crypt, Math Dufort, Eric Nelson, Duh Project, just subbed there in the chat. He checked in for a while.
Thanks, Duh.
Yeah. Muggy7, Timid and Amiga Retrocast, The Slow Norris, Chris Folds, Anguish Hauteur, Brutal Barracuda, Macintosh Librarian, Amigos Retro Gaming, Hasifa. Oh, Amigos Retro Gaming is us. I don't know how we got in there.
We sponsor ourselves.
Yeah. 6MBRX. I am Paul H. Mohawk Mall, Bumface Pooh Hands, Silver Streak 72, Roushi MSX, Brother Bill, Paco Take, Midgard73, and Still Adolescing. If you support us through a Twitch subscription, you also get access to our Discord server. If you would like that, send me a DM on Twitch, and I will hook you up.
He's your hookup.
Yeah. And finally, we have a new CoCo Show supporter this week on Patreon, Aaron. It's none other than Buttons.
Buttons.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Hey, you punch my buttons, if you know what I mean.
Welcome, Buttons.
I saw Buttons. I saw him log into the Discord, so
Yes.
I knew he was coming.
And we also thank our other Patreons, Jeff Landreth, Graham Vebke, Wing Chun Wolf, who chose the Sands of Egypt, and Curtis Boyle.
Good choice.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are going to be off for a couple weeks, but our show is still going to be on. You can tune in for the next 2 Fridays and watch special Christmas episodes of Our Sinclair and Amigo's Everything Amiga. And we will be back in January with another CoCo Show.
Beautiful, man.
Until then, we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.